Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag, brought to you by Red Ritter Outfitter, the fans' favorite since 1975. I'm Jared Johnson, and we have a lot of good questions, as usual, from inside the Red Ritter subscribers, but a lot of these are hypotheticals, so I want to preface this by saying, look, Texas Tech, right now, at the time of filming this, has a head coach in Mark Adams. So while many of these questions are about hypothetical future situations and who could be the next coach, I have to point out, Mark Adams is the head coach. I even considered not answering some of these questions, but given the results, 10-10, 0-8, just the way the program is right now, I am going to answer these hypotheticals because, hey, you're paying customers, you want answers to these questions, so I'm going to do my best to facilitate that, and it's just not out of the realm of possibilities when you have these kind of results that there might be a new coach next year. So with that in mind, I'm going to dive into the questions. Nas Raider says he thinks Jerome Tang has done a great job. Of course, he has at Kansas State. He said it's a good roster build, but good coaching and promotion of enthusiasm. He says, who do I like that could be someone similar to Jerome Tang? The first guy that comes to mind is Grant McCaslin. At North Texas, he's had a lot of success there, and how he's similar to Tang is his background. He spent time, first off, he got his bachelor's at Baylor. He got his master's at Tech. He served as an assistant coach at Baylor for 5 or 6 seasons. He also, was director of operations at Tech way back in the day, late 90s, early aughts. So he's familiar with the Big 12 is what I'm trying to say, but he's had success as a head coach. So he makes a lot of sense in terms of knowing the landscape of this very difficult basketball conference and having just some overall experience and an enthusiasm about him. And obviously he's had really good success at North Texas. I mean, I don't think North Texas has ever been had as much success as they're having under McCaslin right now. So that makes a lot of sense, and that's how he reminds me of the situation with Tang at Kansas State. Texas Tech Austin says it appears that your workload is going to be a bit lighter this March as opposed to the last 5 or so years. Any March plans? Yeah, a lot of football recruiting. Of course, spring ball will start. I'm going to be covering the heck out of that. It's weird how the trajectories of the two programs, Tech basketball and football, have flipped or switched. And so I'm going to be covering a lot of Tech football spring ball, which starts around spring break, and of course, recruiting. He says, how about an in-depth look at the baseball team? Yeah, we're going to cover baseball some, but again, just because of the niche, it's kind of a niche compared to, and I know, look, Tech baseball is great. We're going to cover it. There are some diehard baseball fans out there, but the numbers suggest even football spring ball, and even when Tech football has been bad in years past, and then football recruiting, there's so many more people interested in that than in Tech baseball. So, that's where that's where I am going to devote most of my time to. Two Poodles asks, he says, is Mark Adams' Iron Donut defense out of date? Kind of like the air raid. He said, has everyone figured out how to play around it, or is it more of an execution thing? I mean, of course, I think it's more of a known quantity. People are coaching against it. I mean, you saw the skip pass just with West Virginia on Wednesday night where they were getting open threes consistently. I mean, that's really how you swinging the ball to the other side of the court, taking advantage of Tech overloading one side of the court is, the tonic or whatever to the Iron Donut or the no-middle defense. But if you have the right athletes, if you execute it well, a team that plays together, that has lengthy athletes, interchangeable for the most part, athletes on the court. I mean, just last year they showed that they could be a dominant defense, and they have over the years. So while there is some truth that it's being schemed for a lot more than it was, on the other hand, yeah, if you execute it, it could still be very, very effective, in my humble opinion. Syntex Red Raider says, out of the new transfers, he's talking about football and early enrollees, who do you see making the biggest impact? Also, who will be the biggest dud? Well, I'll start with the impact. I think Rusty Stotts, obviously, I expect him to be the starting center. I think he's going to make a huge impact. I think C.J. Baskerville, if he does take over the starting star position, that's a critical role on the team as well. And then in looking at freshmen, well, before I move on from the transfers, Dre McCray, speedy receiver, he could really stretch defenses. He was very productive at Austin Peay. I think he could have a huge impact for the offense. But then going to high school, I think most of these guys are going to be developing. I don't think they're going to see a lot of playing time other than on special teams. But I think Jordan Sanford, who is the highest rated high school guy to sign with Texas Tech in the 2023 class, I think he could play some in the secondary more than just special teams. But for the most part, the freshman will, develop. Probably won't see a lot of meaningful snaps, but Sanford is one to watch for sure. His speed, his ability overall as a football player. I think, one or two corners go down, or maybe not even in that case. Later in the season, he could be a big time player for you at corner. GYATM, get your ass to Mars. Asks, who are the best options as next basketball coach? We already talked about McCaslin, and those are my reasons why. Earlier in the video, his success at UNT, his familiarity with the Big 12, familiarity with Tech. I think all those reasons make him a good option. This is hypothetical, of course, if Mark Adams, for whatever reason, is not the head coach at Texas Tech next season. I think Pat Kelsey is a name, and these aren't names I've heard that Tech are considering. I haven't heard that they've gotten this part, but these are names that people have brought up to me, and I've been like, you know what, that makes sense. Pat Kelsey, for the job, he's known as an up-and-comer at mid-majors, College of Charleston, and at Winthrop, he's had a lot of success. Both those guys are in their mid to late 40s. Known for their enthusiasm, their energy, and I think that's what it takes. Perhaps now so more than ever in this era of college sports and college basketball. So those are two guys. And then just another one just thrown out there, and I don't know how viable this is or not, but Darvin Ham, of course, former Red Raider great. He's in his first year as the head coach of the LA Lakers, so I don't know why he would necessarily consider Texas Tech unless things don't work out, which is always a volatile situation, right? The NBA just in general, but then with the personalities involved with the Lakers, he was interviewed last round when Adams was hired. So, if things don't work out with the Lakers, maybe he considers Texas Tech running, this program that's really loaded for bear with all the facilities and recent success and the fan involvement and all of that. And maybe he does that. There's a lot of former NBA stars who've gone back to their colleges, and they've had varying levels of success. But I think Ham is something to consider at least. Our final question comes from Laxative Larry, who asks, how much blame does Coach Mark Adams carry for this miserable, terrible, disastrous season? Are fans being too fickle, or are poor long-term decisions now bearing fruit, in such as coaching staff hires, player selection, culture, that kind of thing? Well, that's a really good question. Are fans being too fickle? I don't know. 10-10, 0-8. This season has been a disaster. There have been so many rumors out there as well. I think there's a certain level of expectation, which is good. And to it's not just that those expectations aren't being reached. It's just, again, I go back to the word jarring. It's shocking to see this team go from being undefeated at home, challenging for both the Big 12 regular season and the tournament titles, and then going to the Sweet 16 where, hey, you lose to Duke, Coach K in his final season in the Sweet 16. It was a great season last year under Coach Adams. I actually said Coach Adams, I wrote right after the season, the fact that Coach Adams is at Tech, means that the culture will endure. And the opposite has happened under Coach Adams. So I think a lot of people are saying which year was a fluke, or was either one a fluke. And I think it just boils down to, there are some coaching staff changes, and nothing is working. So the coaching staff isn't working if you're 0-8. But also I think I was skeptical and nervous, and my fear has come to become reality in terms of yes, Tech brought in some good transfers. Tech brought in some good high school recruits. I really believe that. But do they fit the scheme? And I think the answer is a resounding no. They've had some injuries, yes. People talked about youth on the roster, yes. But I don't really. I think that one's overplayed. And there's a lot of young teams out there doing better than Tech. I've said that before on previous videos. I think Coach Adams deserves a lot of blame. I asked him point blank after the game Wednesday night when they lost to West Virginia, and he fell on his sword. He took the blame and said the players are good players, they're trying hard, that it was his fault. But I think where they went wrong was going away from the lengthy athlete. They're not physical anymore. They're not long anymore. They're not out toughing in athleticism. Being better athletes than a lot of the teams are playing. The defense has suffered, and the offense hasn't really improved at all. I mean, the offense is still a disaster in terms of just getting into offense and generating good shots for players in their spots. I mean, that just hasn't materialized. So there's a lot of problems, to be honest. And as the head coach, just like where Coach Adams received a ton of, in my opinion, deserved praise for the season last year, he deserves a lot of the blame for this disaster of the season. And it's crazy. It's just really crazy to see the same coach, the same place, have two completely different seasons like this. Just a tremendous, magical season last year, and as you said, a miserable, terrible season this year. So, they still have a little more than half the Big 12 season to go. They get LSU this weekend in Baton Rouge. Right now there aren't a lot of indications to expect things to get a lot better, but it's sports and life, and crazy things happen all the time. So, we'll be here to preview, talk about, discuss, recap everything that happens. But for now, great questions as always. Thank you for watching, and until next time.